Well, hi. Thank you so much for sitting down to chat and like talk about creative projects because we have lots of fun things to talk about. I know. Just for anybody that has no idea who you are, this is Morgan, but I would love if you want to just like kind of use your own words to describe yourself because I think you have a lot of very fun things to say. But yeah, anyways, go for it.
Morgan, I make music. I've had the amazing privilege of working with Naomi on music, but also like helping her at her booth, like selling art prints. That was so fun. I can't wait to do that again. Um, but yeah, I am a cinematic pop artist, and right now I'm working on my first musical called Anira Soul's Rift. So, yay, lots of fun things happening.
If you're on Morgan's side and you've never seen me before, hi, I'm Naomi VanDoren. I am a visual artist and an author, and most recently I've worked with Morgan on like a cinematic, like beautiful piece of basically a trailer theme song for my upcoming illustrated novel, and Morgan helped bring it to life. And yeah, it's been really, really fun working together on things like that. So I was like, I think there'll be more to come for sure. And then in the last fall too, we got to hang out in LA together and just yeah, hanging out at a convention, which was really, really fun. So yeah, I'm excited today to talk about like kind of bigger creative projects because we're both working on things that are kind of like our own unique creations too. So like these things are projects we've thought up, stories we've thought up, worlds, and yeah, there's just so much there that I'm looking forward to diving into.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Absolutely same.
I put together a couple of questions for us to kind of like guide us through like our little conversation here. So if you see me looking over to the side, yeah, that's
Same.
why. In regard to working with me on my illustrated novel, specifically making the Rumble, which is like the trailer, what I think of as like the trailer, like thematic music for like the entire book, I want to talk about like our collaboration process.
Please.
I gave you a premise for the book. You got to see like the early drafts and things like that, lots of pictures. So cool. How do you approach tackling such a big project like that? Because like I know what I got to see on my end with like the the little bits and pieces you sent me, but just as a creative from your end in the studio, what does that look like?
To preface all of this, I would say creating a song for you, I would say by far this has been the easiest song to make for someone else. And not saying easy as in it happened super fast and I didn't put much effort into it. With this, it was just very easy to know exactly what I needed to do because you already were so thorough with what you sent over to me. It was just very clear. Working with you, it was just, I would say it was a very seamless process. And what made it that way was just the source material. You knew exactly who your characters were. You had so much art, like everything that you sent to me, I immediately understood the world and like where this needed to happen. And I understood who the people were that this song was being sung by and whose perspective this was from. And then that just jump started everything just really, really easily. And it's also, very, because it's girls going on an adventure, girls going on a magical adventure. That's something that resonates with both of us and so many people. And so it was just very like seamless to just slip into that and slip into, okay, what is the journey and what is the feelings and things like that. Because I know those are things that like, we've both felt. So yeah, that's where after I just, immersed myself in everything that you provided to me, just really, that's I think one of my favorite parts about this too, where it's like, I get to see everything else. I get to see everything that no one else has seen. It's behind
almost half a year before anybody else saw stuff. I'm like, here you go, here's it all.
Literally. And there was like such a sense of just like honor that I feel with this too, because it's your baby that you spent so much time with, and you're just like, okay, now make something. So yeah, the approach for it was very clear, because you were very clear in what your story and your world was. And so yeah, it just kind of flowed pretty seamlessly from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because like I think I was trying not to overwhelm you with too much, but I also like I did have it all this like huge packaged world of like stuff that I was like, well, here's a bunch of context, like here's like the whole shebang. So it was really cool to just hand that over so early too. It felt like before I was ready to share with the world a lot of it, and to kind of like then have that returned back to me in like song form was really fantastic. Like be like, oh no, She gets it. Like it makes sense. I think you even shared this before you shared the rough draft with me. You showed me like a little bit of the singing. That's the Anira's like walking song, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. And you're like, you have to hear this. And I'm like, oh, wait, those are the
Was it
words
your?
in the book. And I'm like, wait, because you asked me how to pronounce them, which I thought was fantastic because I had kind of pieced that together in my head. And like when I'm writing it, of course, like I'm thinking like, how would you kind of say this? But I didn't really think about them being said more than just someone reading through the book.
I believe that this is real. I got to make a song for the series. And in the new book, there's a part where a character sings. So I asked the amazing author, Naomi, what does it sound like?
Hello, Cairo, Solaho, Kaido, Measik, Haida, Kaido.
I was so excited when she said that back over. And guess what? I gave it a melody.
Added context in the book, the main character goes just on a little mini trip through the jungle to go visit her family. And on the way, there's a little bit of like a kind of like a walking song that she sings. And Morgan picked that out. And it's like in chapter, I don't know, like chapter 10 or something. Like it's a kind of it towards the front of the book, but it's not right at the beginning. Picked that out and then started using that in the track. And yeah, that was just really special to me.
I mean, on that, when we're talking about approaching this song, I think why it was so easy was because the first question I always ask when like I'm making a song for someone else is, whose perspective is this from? And because you had such clear, well-rounded, already amazing characters that existed, because like yeah, you sent me the certain chapters where you're like, okay, these are the important chapters for Anira. Yeah. These are like the ones that are important.
He is becoming a person now, right here.
Yeah. And so then you just pull from that, and then you just kind of go from there, and then it was really fun. I remember, I think, speaking on the language thing, I remember asking you that, and then you sent it back to me, and then I was just like, I hear it. Like, it was just, so much of this process was just me asking you a question, and then you providing information, and then me immediately just knowing what to do with that information. So that's
so cool.
That's why it went so well. Like, I have loved working with you. It's been amazing.
I love hearing that because it felt on my end, it felt very natural. You had a lot of really good questions too, like understanding the different parts and pieces of the story and who it's coming from, and basically who is the song for as well. I'm kind of curious, are there any particular themes or emotions or moments in the book that kind of influenced the songs for Anira? Her story arc is a character that's coming from a very isolated village, separate from the world. She's not really sure about herself. She doesn't know who she wants to be. And so I remember finding chapters that felt like those pivotal moments in her story arc where she is now realizing, I can't be here in order to be the person I'm meant to be. I have to leave. I have to become something more and do the scary things.
No, I think you summed it up actually very well, honestly, because the moments that really resonated with me were those moments of like the whole song is a question. Like the whole song is a question, and then at the very, very end, it's answered. It's like, do I venture out there? Will I venture out? Or something like that. It's like this, it's this growing. And so I think there were the moments where, she's in the village and she's with her elders and they're telling her, no. Don't do that. But it's like, and that's, the whole song is about like this break between the head and the heart, where it's like, I understand these things, but it doesn't feel right. And so then it's this journey. The song is this journey to have the head and the heart on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And so, those moments where you had her make decisions, and I think there's a lot of her coming into her, like, her own agency. And then, that's, I think, what drove it for me. And it's just a very clear arc. It's also just a reflection. It's a reflection because you've written so well. And so it just makes sense. And like, if it's already well written, it's very easy to just build off of that. So really,
it's also relatable for both of us too, I feel like. And then it's almost like you're writing for yourself, probably in a little bit of ways. It's just like, oh, this is a feeling I can associate with, and then push that into like the momentum of the song and the feelings and the choices behind the instruments and things too.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. If the book had a full entire soundtrack, what would you say that would sound like?
The Rumble is it's very bright, and it's classic adventure. Girl realizes I'm gonna go out into the world. Like it's a very like classic song in a
Yeah.
sense. And so the Rumble is it's the beginning. Like that is the beginning. It's the Rumble. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go on the journey. So I think that, I mean, from what I've read in your book, like it is not all sunshine and butterflies. There is it heats up. It gets hard.
Yeah.
Like and so I think there would be moments of where, it's darker. I'm not going to give away things with the book, obviously.
Spoilers.
Yeah. But like the Rumble is just like, it's the happy, what is it? I forget what it's called in the storytelling, like the hero, like called adventure or something.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's like the call, I think, is a little tagline you could apply to like that part of the story arcs.
That's what that is. And then, I don't think this at all captures, the dark night of the soul. Like there's not, everything is crumbling and everything is breaking. And I'm on this journey and now the
What have
journey
we
is
done?
journeying. Yeah.
Will we save the day? I don't know.
Yeah. Which is such an important moment to have and is a very real moment. Happens to everyone. So yeah, I think that definitely some darker things. Some battle scene music. There's a lot, like
Full arc of thematic music.
Full arc. There's a full arc musical. Everything can happen with it because the book is so good, so good.
Thank you. Just in case if anybody's been watching and had like a few questions along the way. So for context, Anira and the Spirit of Magic is an illustrated novel. So it's not a graphic novel. It's a full-length chapter book, but it has like illustrations throughout. I love what you said, Morgan, about girls going on an adventure. Like, I think that's probably the best fit for like, to give it a tagline. What is this book about? Girls
Magical
going on an adventure.
Magical girl adventure. Yeah.
With fun, furry creatures. I also wanted to talk about your projects, Morgan, because we've talked about working with me on the Rumble, which is for Anira and the Spirit of Magic, but I know you have like a whole host of other things you're working on. But more specifically, you have your own projects and your own world building and fun, exciting story, things like that. I don't know where you want to start with it because there's so much, I feel like, to share.
There is so much. Yeah. Wow. Where to even begin? So, for some context, me and one of my childhood best friends, Samantha, a few years ago, I texted her like a mad person, and I was like, can we call today? She was like, I mean, yeah, okay, of course. She's the calmest person I think that exists. And I'm just over here just like, ideas, just kind of, when you're an adult who's trying to be creative for a living, you just kind of figure out, okay, you talk with yourself and you're like, okay, what is the end goal? Where do I want to be? What is the thing that I want to do? And so I've always known that I wanted to, create musicals. And I think there is this, I don't know what it is, but I think part of it is reality. And another part of it is, I think on the reality side of things, there is this idea that you work, you do something, and then you get to do the thing that you really want to do at the level that you want to do it. But I think I just had a very real conversation with myself of, well, what if I just start doing the thing I want to do that I'm working toward already? Why don't I just start doing that now? And then the next thing I make after that is going to be even better. And like, just why don't I just like kind of cut out this, because I think for me, I was like, okay, I need to make music for a certain amount of time, and then I need to do this, and then I get to do the big project. But having just this very real conversation, and I feel like this is probably something that we have a lot of similarity in, because being an independently published creator and author that you are, I know that you understand what I'm talking about. And so anyways, I was like, it just started out as, let's build this whole world, and then I just want to let's create a story within it, and then I'm gonna make like a conceptual album. Okay? That sounds fun. Great. Haha. And so she and I, for like a year, we would sit on 2-hour-long calls, and we'd be like, okay, let's talk about the magic system. Let's talk about the lore. Let's talk about the creation story. Let's talk about okay, what themes, and, you know, creating our characters in that. So yeah. And then about, I don't remember, the timelines are getting very, very fuzzy. But
Okay,
then, like,
mine too.
yeah, really. Because you work on something for so long, you're like, wait,
I
where,
like really know
where
when
did,
that started, actually.
like, actually, really, really, really. But then, like, there have been, like, a lot of audio dramas that have released recently. And I was like, had this, like, massive, just like, oh my god, we should make an audio drama. We should do that. Because I think something that I know I run into is obviously, I want whatever I put out to be perfect and fantastic and, like, a true reflection of, like, because, you know, it's a part of yourself that you're sharing, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, this is what I made, here you go. But what I was running into, I want this to be very, very good, and how do I make something really, really good with no money? Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, I can make an
Hey,
audio
I know what
drama.
that's like.
Yeah, you know
You're
exactly
like,
what
it's just you and a friend, and like, that's it. Yeah.
so it's like, you have to be realistic, because it's like, you have to, you know, you do it in stages. If you don't have the money, you just do that. And so I was like, okay, let's make an audio drama. And then from there, it has just honestly exploded. It's when we announced it about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, our announcement video blew up.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden we had, like, real voice actors who were like, oh, we want to be in this.
Cool.
Voice actors who, like, I've watched you in this show, and I've watched you in this show, and now you're following me, and you want to be in my musical. That's crazy. That doesn't make
That's
any sense.
amazing. Yeah.
And then one of the coolest additions was this past year. Actually, when I was at Lightbox with you,
Yeah.
met, there was someone who came by. Her name is Taylor, and she was like, she had already known I think she had some stuff from you before, but I had posted that I was going to be there with you.
Yeah.
But then she showed up, and she showed me an animation that she had done to my, like, Please, Please, Please cover. And it was, like, Pixar level. And I'm like, who are you? And she's, like, worked at DreamWorks. She's, like, worked at, like, a bunch of different places. And, like, she and I, like, fast forward to now, like, we are best friends. Like, we dog sat their dog for, like, 2 weeks, like, just stayed in their house. Like, we're friends. But she is an amazing animator and creator who, she just recently left DreamWorks and has started her own indie animation studio. And the plan, right, like, there's just, like, a lot. I can't say too much about, like, the financial ends of stuff, but soon we're launching, like, our Kickstarter for the whole thing. There's just been, like, a lot of things that have happened, but she and her whole team have made it. I need to show it to you, actually. I'm gonna send you
I was gonna say, wait, I gotta see this.
I've just been, like, just silent about just, like, plotting and scheming.
It is really hard to sit on projects like this until the right moment, right? Like, you have to keep it in under wraps.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you let it out too soon, you can't take it back. And
No.
then stuff changes or whatever. And then you also lose that momentum as well. It's like,
Yes.
oh, no, we gotta, like, time it. And that's hard. That's really hard. You, like, get all the ducks in a row, like, all the things together. And, like, you want to tell me more about the story behind your project? Because I want to hear all about it.
I'd love to. Lunira Soul's Rift. It's a story about, it's so much of a self-insert, and I feel like a lot of what Sam and I have, when we've talked about, you know, why we made this, and very much we feel like it's the Disney princess we never got, and the one we always wanted. And so the main character, her name is Araya, that's who I'm playing, and she goes on this whole journey. She's been told certain things her whole life, and that this is the box that you fit in, and this is who you are, and this is your life, but it doesn't feel right. And she's like, I feel that there's something else. And then she finds out she is actually half of a person. She actually has, and her soul was split, and it created another human, and
that's cool.
her other half is called Shiari, and she's the queen's daughter. And so there's a lot that goes on, and, like, they feel their souls call to each other, and, like, they have to go find each other, and then they feel complete together, and their magic works the best when they're together.
That's
then
fun.
They go on this whole journey, and Shiari's going through stuff on her end with her mom, and feeling like, okay, yeah, I'm a princess, but I don't know if what you're doing is really that good, Mom. Like, are you a bad guy? But you're my mom. And all these things happening, and then, Shiari's adoptive parent, it's like, well, he loves me and he cares about me, but he's kept me in this box, but it's been under the guise of like keeping me safe, and there's just so much. I'm so excited for everyone to experience it. It's this like, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Do you have any idea of how many like episodes or how many like chapters or like what's the length kind of look like?
So, to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure it is 8 episodes. At one point it was 9. I think we combined some episodes. So while we are filming in this moment, it's 8 or 9 episodes. So
sure.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
The world of Anira and just everything it is a very, like, it's very clear, and it's, the color, the environments, down to the trees, like everything is like very, very intentional. And so like what inspired like what that world, like how did you build the world of Anira?
Yeah. So the kind of the seeds for building this world began kind of when I started thinking about writing for myself and reading fantasy. A lot of the fantasy and this was, like several years ago, like almost 10 years when like the seeds of like, oh, I want to write and create my own world sort of began with realizing that I didn't have a lot of stories that were fantastical settings that felt like they were similar to where I grew up. So I grew up in Indonesia, and I wanted to see more fantasy that wasn't based in like a Western world, like, old, England or somewhere in Europe. It just felt like there wasn't a place for teenage Naomi that grew up in the jungle and very different type of culture and things like that to really escape to, I guess. And I felt like, well, if I'm missing that, I bet a lot of other people maybe are missing that too. So I was like, you know what? I could just write my own story. Like, I want to just play in this world and experience it. And yeah, that was kind of like the beginnings of it. And then as I kind of leaned into that more, I realized, this is something I really love. Like, I'm building this world that is based on some of the places I grew up, like some of the settings, like the actual places. And some of the books are like, waterfalls I'd hike to, villages I've, lived near. Not, it's all like little hints of it. It's not like any sort of like exact replica or anything like that. But taking that inspiration and that sort of like setting and then just really diving in and like getting really inventive after the fact, it was really, really fun, especially when you start asking questions. Why does it exist? How did it get there? Who lived here? I don't know. What do they speak? What food do they eat? Do they have any special rituals? Like, what do they do when it's rainy season? What do they do when it's dry season? All these kind of things. And, they're not exactly included in my books, but that's the background, right? That's the background stories. That's the rich world building. So yeah, that's a big part of what inspired it, is where I grew up. And then I love reading stories about characters that find themselves in a story, like it's that maybe it's classic fantasy hero's journey or whatever, but a character that starts off, they're a little bit unsure of themselves. They're not the like chosen hero at all. They're often reluctant heroes that I prefer. People that have to step up to do the right thing, to do the thing that's hard. Nobody comes along and like hands them a magical sword. It's like, no, they're choosing to go do the uncomfortable thing because it makes their life better and it makes their whole community better. And that's another common thread in a lot of my stories, is this sort of found family and community of people that come together to help save the world. And it's not so individual, which I love. And that feels really special.
I feel like that's just so, I mean, maybe not necessarily inherently unique, but I think in the scope of what exists, of what does exist, that is very, very unique. Especially, like, I understand what you're saying about the world building, because, Sam is Filipino, I'm half Indian. But we were like, yeah, we're going to make something high fantasy, but it's going to be South Asian. And so, and those aren't, I don't know, we don't see a lot of that.
Indonesia is also unique in that it spans like so many different types of people groups too. So if you go like and you look at Indonesia, you have Java, and you go all the way across and you have like Papua on the opposite side. So you go from like Southeast Asian all the way to like Polynesia, Oceania, like very different types of like ways of living and like food and culture and everything. And having lived like in 3 different spots in Indonesia, it's very
Yeah.
interesting to sort of like pick and choose or like, oh wait, this is very Indonesian, but it's also like very from this part of Indonesia, not from that part of Indonesia. It is fascinating to see like all of that rich influence.
Well, I'm excited to see it, and I already from the first book and all that I've seen of the second,
Yes,
very excited. Everyone should be excited.
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay, so last year you reached out.
Mm.
You said, "Let's make a song." Why? And like, how does that tie into? It's a book. How does it tie in to that in your world and what you've created?
So for this book, I had a idea that I wanted it to feel bigger than just a novel release. I wanted it to feel like there is this greater world, this greater story happening. And I felt like having music tied to it could make it feel even more real, like even more immersive.
Horizon safety, I know well of the peril ahead, and fear a response. But I am charged to challenge legend. Heroes never are born, they are forged. And my fire sparks.
Having a piece of music that goes with this story and this whole world I created was just like this kind of what you were talking about earlier, where it felt like I could wait. I could wait until some future point in time where some studio comes up and picks up my book and turns it into an animation or something like that. But I was like, well, or I could reach out to one of my favorite creators that makes music and see if they wanted to work together on a commission and we could make a thing, and I could do that now. So that was kind of, I guess, the reason behind wanting to do it now rather than later was why wait? Like why would I wait for somebody else to initiate that? And instead I could work with somebody else that I admire and I love their music and we can make something really cool together. So I'm really glad I did. Very, very, very glad I did.
I am glad you did. And I checked like right at the beginning of this call. It hasn't been out for a year yet, and we're both independent artists, and Spotify alone, like it's almost 2 million plays. Like it's almost
That's
there.
amazing.
Yeah. So like
I love that.
we made something like factually very good. Very good.
Yes.
That people love. So in the world where the book has a full soundtrack, what would it have? What is your vision?
I think of the Rumble as sort of Anira's song, and it's her kind of like becoming her own self and choosing to make the big move, choosing to leave. I feel like the whole soundtrack would have another song for my other character. Her name is Naya. And then I would also have pieces that are kind of, the tough parts of the story where things get a little bit dark. I love like a classic chase scene. And then also like there's moments in the story where maybe things almost feel like it's too big or too hard. But then there's that tiny little glimmer of like, but maybe we can keep trying, right? Like maybe even though this feels so big and so hard and so difficult, we've tried so hard and we've almost gotten to the point of giving up, but we're still here and we still have this one more thing we can try, and then giving it our all. And then of course you have like the triumphant wrap up at the end. I feel like too, it's a good credit score scene.
We did it music.
Happily ever after.
This is just another question that I have. Illustrator and author. I feel like those aren't things that typically people are doing both. What has been your experience with that? And also how? Because those are things that obviously they work very well together. Obviously, but they're very, from the outside, seem like very, very different tasks. And so how did you do this? Because this is crazy. Like I have the book on my shelf, whereas you're flipping through and it's page after page after page of it's not just like a little blurb and then it's mostly illustration. No, it is a full few pages of text. Like it is a novel. It's not a picture book. It's a novel. And so that coupled with art, like can you explain that to us? Like, because you did it all. Not that you can't, it's just I don't feel like I know a lot of people who have done both.
It isn't done a lot. I don't know about for other people, but like it feels like maybe because it's just a lot of work. And
Yeah.
also too, like it is two very separate career hats, right?
Yeah.
Like professional author writes book, edits book, has it professionally done, edited, like full story, paper to, end to front to back story.
Yeah.
And then the illustration side of things, the cover illustrations, the interior illustrations. The book has kind of a variety too. Like, so there's little vignettes that might be little character scenes. For Anira, I tried to focus a little bit more on the like larger scale illustrations too, where it's like it feels like you're stepping into the world. So it feels nice and immersive, and you're like, I can see now where this is taking place. Or even if it's not described in the words in the writing, it's adding to it, right? Like it has more of an emphasis on maybe little snippets of setting, but not written out word for word over here. So I like being able to combine the two because as a visual person, I can imagine all day what these places look like, but then I can sit down because I have a visual and describe it and describe the characters going through the story, interacting with it. It already feels like a real place when I sit down to write. So because I have the visuals in my head or in a sketch or, already drawn out, it almost feels like a movie in my brain where I'm just kind of like making the characters like interact and like act out the scene or whatever. So I guess it does have a little bit of overlap, or maybe like a complementary overlap, if you will. That does help. And there is a little bit of a similarity in process too. So like writing, you start off with like a rough draft. Everybody's familiar with like maybe you pick a story arc style, the hero's journey or something like that. And then you kind of like add on like details and things like that. And illustration isn't too dissimilar. Like I feel like, I'll start off with some thumbnails of a chapter. I'll have a couple of ideas and I'll kind of like sketch them out. It starts rough. It's not finished. It's very unpolished. And then like as you go through revisions or as you go through like the drawing process, you refine it. You add more finished details, finished line work, finished color or whatever on top, just like the writing where you go through the editing process and you trim out like the the overly descriptive sections that have too much world building on it and the info dumping, and you kind of streamline the story so that you feel more compelled to like interact with the book in that emotional sort of way, not just in like I'm reading a bunch of paragraphs that are like really boring fantasy descriptions. Where do you plug in the little parts of that emotional connection to all the different characters and really make it about these people that don't actually exist, but how do you make the reader care about them? You include details about their lives, and you include interactions that are relatable, and those trials they go through to get to the finished thing, life not working out the way they expected it to. The unexpected things happening and how do they react to it and stuff like that. So I think that answers your question. The how, though, like it kind of baffles me a little bit too, because like I used to write in middle school and in high school for fun, but I didn't really ever think of it as like a thing that I could do as a career.
Tale as old as time. Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Because it's the exact same thing on this end.
And then like the art stuff came along, and that felt more natural to sort of turn into a business. And so then when the writing came along, that was like a little bit of a catch up, right? I have an editor that I've worked with the last couple of years, and she's helped me improve a lot of that writing techniques to a point. My writing and my art, they feel a lot more on the same level, like professional. That's a very long answer to a very good question, though. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and I feel like, even off of that, there's just so much I feel seen by in your, like, what you've had to say, and the thing you just said just now of, like, my words are not going to be perfect. But, for me, I feel like, okay, I have all my singles, but I have the big project I'm working on. And I feel like there is some intersectionality with you, where you're like, I have my art and conventions and things like that, and that it's great, and you love that. And you're also working on, there's always, like the day-to-day, but there's also this, I feel like we all have these big overarching things that we're working on, which is cool to see, like, because we're not doing the same thing at all, but we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
It's that, like, we don't exactly have a due date for it, but it's something that's on our mind all the time. and we're working on some part of it all the time. It's just not really out there to like broadcast to the world. Yeah, totally.
That's amazing. Thank you for answering.
Yeah.
In this next book, what would you say the main themes are?
So in Anira, the Spirit of Magic, kind of the overarching themes is a little bit of a coming of age story. So a little bit of the like main characters kind of understanding who they are and stepping out of their, I wouldn't say comfort zone, but really like stepping up, right? Like they have decided who they are, or at least in the story arcs, they are now learning about who they want to be. And one of those themes for both of the characters, I feel like too, is understanding that there's their culture that they grew up in. They don't always know best, or they don't always have the right answers. They might think they do, but you know, doing the uncomfortable thing of asking questions and maybe going a little bit against the grain, being not exactly, I wouldn't say rebellious, but they're asking questions that are really tough. Like, hey, why are we continuing to repeat these patterns that are harmful to our people? Things like that. And then as a group, you know, the themes, you know, it's found family too. A lot of the characters either they don't have family that they're close with, or you know, they don't have family that exists at all, and so they are finding family in and amongst themselves, and those bonds are really strong because you know, they're forming them through really tough situations. And I guess the last ones, the two I'm thinking of, adventure, of course, like adventures like I've given, it's a fantasy story. I feel like there's some travel, adventure, excitement, all that kind of fun stuff, but really I want to tie back into like the self-discovery part. Like Anira is learning who she is, but also she's learning her connection to magic, and that connection is through understanding herself. Well, yeah.
So with all that you've shared with us about this fantastic project, and I say that with my full chest because I've read so much of it, what kind of reader is perfect for this next book?
I've been aiming, I mean, honestly, it's anybody, but that's not very fair to say. I wrote it for myself. I'm like a 30-something-year-old, and I'm just like, this would be perfect for me now, but also for me as a younger person too. So classic fantasy, I guess you could say. No spice, just a lot of adventure and a lot of really cool world building and magical settings, and two very, very strong characters that I feel like other people like myself might feel drawn to as well. So yeah. And you? Yes.
Very drawn.
Yeah.
Love it.
I'm glad. Like, I want it to resonate with, and it already seems to be. And I'm like, people haven't read this yet, and it's already like resonating. And I'm so excited for people to be able to read a copy because I'll be like, now tell me what you think. So
it's fantastic. I can't wait for everyone, because I've had it since for a while, but I'm excited for everyone else to experience it. It's truly magical, and anyone who gets to experience it is very lucky. Very lucky.
I agree. Thank you for chatting with me. This was really fun.
Of course. It was also just good to talk to you.
It is really good to catch up. And I feel like we will have a lot more things to catch up on in the near future as well. So
very soon.
Yeah. Well, if you don't already know about Morgan, now you know more. And if you haven't listened to her music, you should go listen to her music because it's phenomenal. And now you know about our projects. So I'm sure you're going to be able to like catch up and find all the cool, exciting things. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Naomi, for putting this together. Thank you.
Is there anything before we close out that you wanted to add in?
Please support us on our Lunaira Souls Rift Kickstarter. It's an amazing project already, and so any help means the world, and thank you for help us bring this to life. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good.
I'm excited for it.